Welcome back into the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Daniel Hood Roofing. We are blessed in Tennessee that we don't have to deal with a lot of major natural disasters too often, as you're seeing in Florida right now. But even run-of-the-mill Tennessee thunderstorms can bang up your roof and cause leaks. Call Daniel Hood Roofing today. They have operators standing by. Call them today. Call them this week. Line up a free estimate on a new, good-looking, super protective roof for your home. DanielHoodRoofing.com to read all kinds of testimonials from your East Tennessee neighbors about the kind of roofs Daniel Hood will put on your home. All right, let's take a look at the SEC scoreboard. It wasn't a very active one yesterday. Ole Miss knocks off Kentucky 22-19. Alabama loses Bryce Young, and they still hold on. It got sketchy there for a while, 49-26. Mississippi State, boy, and Texas A&M, 42-24. Jimbo Fisher and his mouth and his top recruiting class just not looking good. LSU, as we've discussed, squeaks by Auburn. They got the benefit of a lot of turnovers. Georgia comes back at the last to beat Missouri. South Carolina beat South Carolina State on Thursday night, and Florida is playing Eastern Washington right now. All those were weather-affected games, the South Carolina and the Florida games. 5 weeks into the season, let's take a look at the SEC standings. And while we put that up there, I'm just going to ask you guys, we'll just leave it there for a second. Biggest surprises so far. Mine was easily Texas A&M. Yeah. They're 3-2, but it's not a good-looking 3-2. With the recruiting class they had, with Jimbo Fisher popping off about Nick Saban this offseason, with the money they're spending down there and his insane contract that they gave him, to me, that is the story of the SEC so far. I'm shocked by that.
No, I am too. And because of the quarterback situation, they got to get that figured out. They're not very good at that position. And then defensively, for them to give up, all the yards and points they did to Mississippi State, that was surprising. The other ones that has surprised me is Ole Miss.
Yeah.
Ole Miss is better. They're really good on defense, much better than they were a year ago. And I think that showed against Kentucky.
They really hadn't played a very tough schedule until yesterday, but that defense was impressive yesterday. Of course, they were aided by the fact that Mark Stoops has a first-round quarterback who he refuses to let throw the ball until it's –
Yeah, and I had Ole Miss too, and they're calling, of course, Lane Kiffin is the portal king because they brought in 24 transfers. That was second in the country to Southern Cal. What I saw, Ole Miss is now 5-0 for the first time since 2013.
And they got a chance to go 8-0, 9-0. Their schedule sets up pretty well.
And like Jimmy said, they're winning with defense. So if he gets that offense, I think he needs to get back calling plays. But anyway, that's who I had down was Ole Miss.
Vince, what's any surprises?
Yeah, you guys hit on the biggest ones. It's not so much as where teams are in the standings. It's how they've looked to get there. A&M is really the biggest one. I didn't think A&M was a top 5 team going into the year. I think they were overrated. I didn't think maybe they'd look this anemic on offense. So it's that. But I think that we're going to see teams really change from now versus where they're at now down the road, because some teams like Ole Miss, their schedule lessens out a little bit, whereas Tennessee, theirs makes it becomes a little bit more challenging.
Very quickly, Georgia. They whipped up on Oregon, then they beat South Carolina, but they seem to just be kind of sleepwalking.
I think they're going through the motions a little bit, it looks like. And I wondered, earlier that people were saying, is this Georgia team, give me one of those tightrope surgeries. This Georgia team, God, they're better than last year. And that was after Oregon, of course, overreaction to that. But they look more beatable now to me than I thought they would, in particular with that Missouri performance where they were down by 10 in the fourth quarter. And I still don't think Missouri's that good. I think Georgia's been playing down to their competition.
Nick Saban says that Bryce Young has had a strained shoulder before. He doesn't think it's very serious. He said he thinks he'll be fine. He just didn't want to put him back out there yesterday because he couldn't get much steam into the throws, he said. If he is out and you're Tennessee and you're looking one game, he's got Texas A&M this week. Yeah. We've already said that Tennessee has a better chance against Alabama, and I watched them lose 50-0, but they have a better chance against Alabama this year than they have in a long, long time.
Right.
If Bryce Young's out, you got a real shot against Alabama.
Well, that goes back to what we were talking about in the previous segment, how every week teams are very different. And obviously that's a completely different Alabama team. And even if they have Bryce Young, they have some fluctuation to them. We've seen fluctuation in Georgia. Once Georgia maybe corrects themselves, then they could look dominant as well. So it just really depends week to week. I mean, think about Tennessee. They saw LSU struggle a little bit with Auburn. Georgia looked mortal, and then Alabama has Bryce Young get injured. Tennessee's thinking, we got a shot against all these teams.
Yeah.
A shot. I don't think they're wrong.
I think they do have a shot. I think the thing that we have to remember is, whereas we'll look at LSU next, they're one play away from being 5-0. If they work a 2-point conversion, if they go for 2 and beat Florida State, they're 5-0.
Right.
Tennessee, on the other hand, you're feeling good about them, and they should. You had 2 missed field goals that got you into overtime with Pitt, or you lose there. 1 play at Florida. You're 2 plays away from being 2-2. So all these that's another thing that stands out to me is I will put LSU, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Arkansas, Tennessee, Kentucky, maybe even Florida, depending on how Anthony Richardson plays. I'm not putting A&M in that mess right now. You put all those teams together, if they played round robin, I think they'd all be about 500. I think all those teams are incredibly evenly matched this year. That upper middle part of the SEC is as bunched together as I can ever recall.
Yeah.
And the last thing I'd say, guys, with Alabama, the supporting cast is coming around.
Right.
That was why I thought they were really vulnerable early.
Yeah.
Whoa, now they turn some of those guys loose. They're tough.
Gibbs and the freshman receivers. Yeah.
Yes.
And to be fair, too, Milroe didn't look very good yesterday coming in for Bryce Young. If Young's out for any amount of time, if Saban's wrong and he's out, I wouldn't expect Milroe to continue to look bad because he's going to get more reps in practice. I don't necessarily think that what you saw yesterday is necessarily what you can project for 2 weeks ahead if he's the guy against Tennessee.
And don't you think they're going to go to more to a zone read offense?
Yes, you change it.
Because he's a great runner.
As we saw yesterday.
He's another Anthony Richardson.
Okay, and speaking of running quarterbacks, let's talk about Tennessee LSU next. Come on back on the Sports Source.